I'm Jerry Purvis with Star Herald, and welcome to another edition of Table Talk. Our guest today is Dave Curtis, the mayor of Mitchell, Nebraska. Thank you for joining us this morning, Dave.
Glad to be here, Jerry.
Tell us a little bit about your background and are you an area native? Or?
I'm a Nebraska native. I was born and raised in Omaha, Nebraska, but I've lived out in the Panhandle for about the last 25 years. And I've pretty much been in sales most of my career, and now I work for Contractors Materials for my job. And then I play music and that for my hobbies and things like that.
Tell us about Curtis Corner. And how that came about.
That we are still being begged to reopen. Yeah, and it would be a great business, and we've actually pondered maybe redoing it sometime. But it was my wife and I decided to just thought we'd start an ice cream business, and like what used to be Tubies was around, and there's one before that called the Sugar Shack, and we tried to do some of the same things that they did, and it went really well, and it was just really a super successful business. It was just a thing. It took a lot more time than we thought. It was like 12 hours a day, 6-day-a-week job, and my wife's always been in nursing, and she got asked to come back to nursing for a very good salary, and so it was kind of hard to turn down, so we ended up having to close Curtis Corner. But we just repainted our building recently, and people got all excited that we were going to reopen, and it would be a great thing for Mitchell and to have that back, or something of that line.
Along those lines, you mentioned about maybe reopening Curtis Corner. What are some of the other new businesses that have been opening in Mitchell recently?
We had the Marketplace has been going for, I think, around their second year right now. They've been doing a really good job. And their concept is it's a multi-business, so it's an Italian restaurant, antique store, coffee roaster, coffee shop. And so they do multiple things. The restaurant is their main thing. Granola Box, I believe, is another one of theirs. They make homemade granola and repackage it and sell it to the public. Ayala's opened up 2 years ago at the golf course again. Rick Ayala's doing a really good job out there. A lot of people have really enjoyed to either golf and then have a meal, or just go out there for a nice meal. And then one of the spin-off businesses from the Marketplace was I&L Coffee Roasters, just opened up in the old clinic location right on Broadway and Center, and he started for Mindy Peterson in the Marketplace, and built up a good enough business that he was able to go in there. Now he has a full coffee shop plus roasting homemade coffee from green beans to finished products. So which Isaac and Lacey are doing a really good job. That's an exciting business.
Right. So, how did you become interested in public service, local government?
I've asked myself that question too many times. It's actually our former mayor, Brian Taylor. He approached me, when Curtis Corner was going, how successful it was. They got to see Tara and I interact with the public, and my wife and I, and so he just asked. He was looking for there was going to be an open seat in the council, and he asked me if I would run, and so I did. And so kind of the bittersweet part of that was I defeated him for mayor in the last election, and it wasn't anything that Brian was doing that made me want to run for mayor. Even it was that I just seen some things within the city that I thought could be changed and worked upon, and thought that I would like to have a try at that, and was able to get elected to pursue that. And I think we are making some inroads on some of the things we wanted to see different.
What is it that you like about the Mitchell community, and how did you decide to serve?
It was a really, even this kind of all dovetails with the Curtis Corner thing. My wife and I, we owned a really nice property in the country. It was still a Mitchell address, but we're rural Mitchell. We were going to church in Mitchell, and we said, you know, it would be neat to, you know, start some kind of a business and be part of the community. And I never thought we'd be this big a part of the community. So when the Thomas property came available, which used to be an old grocery store and a home, we purchased that property with the intent of opening a business, being part of Mitchell, and we have. So it's just been kind of an evolution of that started us to come be within Mitchell, and then Mayor Taylor got us, you know, me into the politics side of it, and you just love the people, you know, the people are, that's one thing I like with all of Western Nebraska people, not just Mitchell, you know, how, you know, sometimes we don't see it as much because we're here every day, but how open we are with each other, how much we care for each other, how much we'll help each other, and those are just things that, you know, when we just had the Balloon Fest in the High Plains Rat Rod Riot car show that was a couple weeks, mid-August, and I went around and just introduced myself as mayor and asked a lot of the people that came here, because some of them have been coming here for several years, and just asked them what did they like about it. They just said the people, you know, and you know, when you come from Denver or LA or towns that you have to lock everything you have up and you can't trust your neighbor, to live in this part of the world is pretty special.
What do you see as your role as mayor?
As my role as mayor, you know, it's been interesting ever since even running during my campaign. I've had to explain to people what my role is. There's the role that I have, and there's the role that people think I have. And even some of the candidates running, people have a tendency to look at the mayor as being the king. He's the dictator. Everything he says, he or she says will go, and that's how it'll be, and they'll change everything. And actually, you are the figurehead of the town. You communicate to people at public events, in a different engagements, you do that. But as far as the political side is, the council has all the authority to approve or deny anything we do. So it's the mayor, the council, how our city government's up. You have the mayor, you have the council, city administrator, and the city administrator runs all the employees. So, and the mayor's over the city administrator and the police department. The council does the legislative branch that makes the decisions with budgeting, ordinances, visions for the city. And as mayor, I can have a say on the agenda and items I would like to see, but it still takes 3/4 of the council to make anything that I say go. So, and like I say, even if the council makes their decision wrong, I get blamed for it, thinking it was my decision. But there again, people thinking that the mayor's the one making all decisions. It's actually your council is your decision.
Right. Over the past couple of decades, there have been a lot of changes in Mitchell, where at one time there was the busy corner in downtown. Mm-hmm. And what you see as some of the changes that are a challenge, and how is the city government helping to work on that?
First of all, that's a question I get asked from media a lot, and the answer is there's government and then there's the private sector, and some of those things are the private sector. When our towns were started, the city government did not start, let's just say Broadway right here in Scottsbluff. They didn't start every business. Business people did that. And so we can try to empower business people and people to come and get involved in our town. We can try to incentivize that. But as far as them doing it, they got to do it themselves. The challenges that have happened is our world's changed. And that's what I think we have a tendency to forget. From what I understand, this is pre me living here, to get to Mitchell in the old days, it was a windy road that took 20, 30 minutes, depending if you got what traffic you got behind, how long it took to get here. And somewhere in the early 90s, they straightened out the road. They also about the same time closed the sugar factory, which provided a lot of jobs. And as early the late 80s, early 90s, Mitchell was a hub of businesses. But by straightening out the highway, closing the big manufacturer, and then Walmart coming in and other big box stores coming in, the malls taking big precedents about that same time, then you started having people do all their shopping and retail outside of your local city. And this is all true with all small towns. And then now the internet is another form of, instead of coming to Scotts Bluff, they're gonna go online to give them the money. There are some opportunities, it's not all doom and gloom. It's just we have to have a different business plan, different model. We can't do things how they used to be. A lot of niche shops I think would do good. Like your Flyover Brewery that's here in Scotts Bluff would do just as good in Mitchell. Those kinds of things that people will come to that are non-retail side, I think is the deal. So.
Okay, in the way of getting involved in niches, what are some of the beautification projects, business development, working on aging buildings, with some of the things council is involved in?
You know, we are still working on a plan for some of that. Mitchell's about 20 years late to that plan. About 20 years ago, when all these buildings were being sold, they got sold as storage units. And therefore, people didn't turn the utilities on, they didn't do any maintenance to them, and a lot of them are really, really in disrepair. So we're trying to come up with a plan now that we can afford to do, but somehow incentivize the private sector. We're working on right now, just doing some beautification things, fixing up facades, repainting things. Just appointed a new beautification committee who's been super aggressive, going out getting things, actually volunteer to paint up buildings, planting trees. We still have some flower gardens that have been kind of unattended. We're trying to find volunteers. The biggest thing the challenge that I face as mayor is I get to appoint a lot of people to committees. I don't have enough volunteers. We have about 15 volunteers in the town of like 1,800 people. So less than 1% of our town is here to volunteer. And so the more the community can get involved, the more that would help. But there again, here's what I told people when I was running for mayor. If you want me to go fix a problem, it'll take 2 to 5 years to start on one item. But I can empower you to do it. It can happen next month. Because as government, I have a process I gotta go through, and meetings I gotta do, committees I gotta make, things that gotta be signed off on before we can move forward with things. As a private citizen, you don't have that. You can just go forge forward and do it. But like I said, we're really concerned about our downtown, at least making it look nice, make it a nice place to come be.
And what's the current status of the Mitchell Care Center?
Mitchell Care Center, you know, it went through some challenging times financially. Actually, when I first became a council member 3 years ago, that was the first meeting I went to, was we were talking about changing management. And because they were losing money, they lost somewhere in the neighborhood of $250,000 that year. And they had a good amount of savings because one of our previous care center administrators, when it was doing good, he put money back for that. But like I said, they were kind of going through at an alarming rate. The citizens really didn't want us to change management, and some of the council didn't. So what we ended up doing was, this was Mayor Taylor again, he actually did this, and we started a care center committee, which is basically just an oversight committee, and we weren't micromanaging them, but we were just like kind of walking through. So why are we doing this? Why don't we do this instead of that? And then we rewrote the contract. The contract basically was, if they did bad, they got the same amount of money, and if they did good, they got the same amount of money. And so we incentivized in the new contract that you get this much money, and if you go above and beyond that, you get extra money. And actually, they've gone above and beyond that. Within a year, they became profitable and continue to be so. So that is, we're still hopeful that that can continue. And the thing that drives some of that, though, is as laws come out through the government, and as we're large Medicaid there, and if that changes, I know they were trying to do, the state of Nebraska was doing some Medicaid cutbacks, and we were really afraid that it would we couldn't afford any more cutbacks, and Senator Stinner kind of helped with keeping it, no more cutbacks, we're still getting the same amount.
Okay. So what do you see as some of the goals for Mitchell's future?
Well, the goals is still to be a vibrant community. People love to be here. We realize we're a bedroom community, that people primarily just sleep there, and then go to work in other towns. We get that, but still make it a supportive community. There's things to do. We're improving our parks. We have a golf course. We have things for people to do, and just try to make it nice. Try to attract some business to town. That is some places for people to go and just have a fun night out. So, and like I said, those things all take quite a while. We've accomplished quite a little bit, and I've been in this almost a year now, and we've moved things quite a ways. We got a long way to go, but it's a very slow process, as you know.
Earlier you'd mentioned another area of interest in music. Can you
Yes.
tell us a little about your musical background?
It was a thing. My brother started playing the guitar when I was probably 10 years old, and I just thought that was really neat. And so I ended up finding a cheap guitar and started playing. And I didn't realize at the time it was a horrible guitar. The strings were too tall and it was too hard. And anyway, I still kind of messed around and played that. And then in my early 20s, one of the companies I worked for, they had a vendor had a party, and it was in summertime, so summertime theme's always a barbecue, so they had a barbecue caterer, but they also hired a bluegrass band, and a banjo player was there, and I just absolutely thought that was the coolest thing in the world. And the bass player noticed that I'd been watching him play, and he said, I know you've been watching our banjo player. I said, yeah. I said, I just find that fascinating. He said, well, he teaches. So I talked to him, and he said, sure, I'll give you lessons. And so I've been playing ever since, and I play with the Green Valley Homesteaders. Used to play a lot, local band here, but I just play kind of now as I can.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's with some of the local groups.
Yeah, some local groups. We, do a lot of functions in town that just need background music in a band or something. Play like that.
How many instruments do you play?
Oh, I play the guitar, the mandolin, the violin, harmonica, the banjo, so 4 or 5. So the banjos and guitar are my main instruments. I've led worship at church in the past and things like that. So.
And what's your favorite music genre?
I'm kind of funny that way. I love the bluegrass roots kind of music, but, a good blues band, some good rock and roll stuff is really good. Really heavy metal type stuff, rap type stuff, I've just never really gotten into that. Because I'm more of a, I'm still a product of the 70s kid, so, back then, when musicians were out then, it was about the musician, how well they were. Now you don't. A lot of bands, they just hire guys and it's about the singer. But back then, a lot of your rock bands and even country stuff, it was kind of a guitar-driven, instrument-driven music, and so and that's where I still go back to, is those back when artists were real artists and guys could really play. And there's still some really good players today playing, that play music, but things where you can really hear the music, hear what the artist is doing. I've always even enjoyed the one-man band kind of thing, like Ed Sheeran can do a whole concert with 30,000 people and it's him and a guitar. It's just, that's amazing. John Hartford, I got to see him when I was in high school, and he was a roots kind of guy. He wrote Gentle on My Mind, one of the #1 country songs of all time. It was a big hit by Glenn Campbell. And he was a one-man band. He danced on a board that he amplified while he played his banjo and sang. And he was just really entertaining to watch, and I'm still a huge fan. He passed away just around early 2000s, and just from cancer, but he was just a really great human being, great musician. Really enjoyed that.
Thank you for joining us this morning.
Glad to be here.
And thank you for joining us as well. I'm Jerry Purvis for Star Herald, and you've been watching Table Talk.